Hello and welcome to Ask Coach Cam, where I answer your burning fat loss questions. Earlier in the week, I asked people for their questions, and today's selection is what we have. If you want, you can ask questions while I'm streaming, and I'll try and get to them at the end. If not, I'll be sure to include them next week. So without further ado, let's get into the questions. So first question we have today is from Jess, who says, "Hi Cam, I've listened to / read your stuff about creating a caloric deficit, but I'm struggling to find the time and stay motivated to go to the gym. Help." Okay, so the first thing that strikes me there is the word motivation in that question. Number one, motivation is bullshit. Just long term, it's not a useful concept. If we're wholly reliant on motivation, we're ultimately going to fail at some point. Okay, if we imagine motivation as a finite resource and we use motivation to get out of bed and deal with annoying people at work and all that stuff, we're draining our motivation throughout the day. And then so if we're reliant on that motivation, it just depends whether we've got anything left in the tank or not. So as you can imagine, if we're really running low on motivation, then things like the gym, things like eating healthy, all those things are all going to slip by. So really, what I try and do my course as well is to try and get people to remove motivation as the answer to the reason they didn't do something. So it's like, okay, I didn't go to the gym 3 out of 4 times this week. I'll just be more motivated next week. How many times have we all said that to ourselves? I'll just be more motivated next time. Okay. And the reality is you won't be more motivated next time. You'll be motivated. If your week's the same, you'll be motivated the exact same amount. Okay. So it's not a useful concept to use. And instead what we need to do is establish habits, and often habits I think are spoken about in the wrong way. So going to the gym, to use the example we already used, going to the gym 4 days out of 7, okay? That's not a habit. That's a goal, okay? Habits are automatic. They're an automatic process, just like biting your fingernails. Before we've used the pasty example, smelling a pasty on the train, all of that going through, being processed by your brain, and then getting off the train and just kind of automatically going and get a pasty, okay? You don't even really think about it. You just do it because that smell has been taunting you on the train, and it's almost automatic. So when we talk about habits, we're talking about these automatic processes. And the reason that's useful and the reason that's good for us is because we can devote very little brain power to doing anything. We don't have to think about it. It also means we don't have to motivate ourselves to go and do it. A big phenomenon that people experience is when they walk in through the doors of the gym, actually all of that requirement for motivation it's not needed. The actual motivation is getting to the gym, okay? So that's the habit we form. We form the habit of going from the house, going from work to the gym. And again, we want to make that automatic. So we want it so that you get home and you just automatically put your gym shoes on. And how do we do that? Well, we do it by establishing habits. And establishing habits is not an easy thing. And the way we establish habits requires absolute consistency, okay? So if it's a gym day, we need to be 100% consistent. So if you're failing at going to the gym for half an hour on these 4 days, set the task to just go for 10 minutes. Now you'll find you'll probably stay there for the whole half an hour, but if you just tell yourself it's just 10 minutes, put those shoes on, or you don't even have to go to the gym. If you're still not consistently doing that 10 minutes, get dressed for the gym, get to the door, and then tell yourself, okay, if I'm really not feeling it, I don't have to do it, but that's the minimum goal, which kind of brings me on to my next point, which is set that minimum viable goal that you can do 100% of the time, because that's what we want. We want consistency. So it's a similar concept, if you're aware of it, to minimum viable product, which is used in often in engineering practices, especially software, where they say, okay, what's the minimum viable product that we can put out there and get people using, and that way we're going to get feedback on it and all that kind of stuff. So for you, what is the minimum viable goal, or what can you immediately start getting feedback on? So going to the gym for that 10 minutes, can you do it 100% consistency? If not, why? Stop going, I'll be more motivated next time. Ask yourself, why didn't I go to the gym? Okay, well, I wasn't I wasn't dressed for the gym, or I went home and I sat straight on the couch. Okay, that's a habit that we need to remove. That going in and sitting straight on the couch, that's a habit that we can remove. That's a habit that we can undo, and instead enforce the habit of actually getting out the door and going to the gym. So that's the kind of thing to focus on, is those minimum viable goals. And yeah, they're the smallest possible goal that you can set yourself. And from there, and the reason 1% is called 1%, from there we can then do our 1% improvement, which produces exponential results over time, because we can just become more and more consistent. It becomes more and more automatic to do a lot of these things. And that's how we progress forward into the future and start to get into a performance zone. Okay. So do that. The other thing is you might be making it too complicated. You might not necessarily need the gym. Maybe a walk will do. Okay. Oh, I'm getting a notification here. Seems to be okay. We'll see. Sorry, little interruption there in the broadcast. Hopefully it's all right. So, where was I? Yeah, you don't necessarily need the gym. You don't necessarily need to eat salads every day. Okay, it could just be going for a walk every day. It could be cutting 100 calories out. Okay, and that might be, to be honest, if you cut out a Mars bar, that's 200 calories cut out. Okay, and that'll put you in a deficit, and we can start losing fat. Brilliant. It's that easy. Oftentimes it's that easy. We try and do way too much. We're trying to go to the gym every day. We're trying to eat loads of salads and all this kind of stuff. And the salads aren't making us full, and we snack in the afternoon, and then we feel terrible about ourselves and all that kind of stuff. And this is not specifically for you, Jess. This is kind of a wider point to everyone. But also, what gives you the audacity to think that you can wake up and suddenly start training like an athlete? Okay. Yeah, that's what we do. We say we're going to go to the gym every day. We're going to do this insane workout. We're going to do extreme workouts. We're going to extreme diet and all these things. And then we beat ourselves up for failing. It's nuts. Who are you to say that you can just wake up one day having done nothing? All right. You know, presumably we've set these gym goals. We need this fat loss because we've really not been exercising as much as we should. We've not been eating as healthy as we should. So going from that baseline, what gives you the audacity to think you can suddenly start training like an athlete? It's nonsensical. Okay. So what we need to do instead is we go from a baseline of our doing nothing. Okay. And we set the minimum viable goals, and we start with those, and we improve on those over time. We don't start at the end. Okay. You can't, you know, it's a bit like saying, I want to be a doctor, and just skipping medical school and going straight to be a doctor. No, that's not how it works. We need to build the habits. We need to build the knowledge. We need to build awareness of ourselves. We need to build the right mindset. We need to do all these things, okay, before we get to the end result, which is, you know, really high performing fat loss. So we need to start with the basics. And, you know, statistics show this. If you start with going to, you know, I'm going to go to the gym every day, I'm going to eat salads every day, all this stuff, statistics show you're going to fail. Okay. If you're wholly reliant on motivation to do these things, you're going to fail. Okay. Statistically. And the people that do, you know, we're talking like 90%, the 10% that don't fail, usually those that keep going, probably have strong, well-defined and meaningful goals. You know, maybe that 10% is someone that wants to join the army. Okay. And they're really keen on joining the army. They need to lose the fat or whatever. So they're really motivated to go forward. Motivation isn't the best word, perhaps, after I've just called it bullshit. But, you know, they have meaning. Their goals have an intense meaning to them, and that's what drives them forward. They're driven, okay? For the other 90% that just want to lose a bit of fat, you don't have that meaningfulness with your goal set, okay? So you're going to have to approach things a bit differently, and chances are you're in that 90%. If you go straight into, I'm going to do all this stuff, the chances are you're going to fail. Okay, so you need to approach it in a different way. And yeah, it just comes down to and going back to specifically you, Jess, it's probably much more simple than you're making it. I always like to say you're only effective as your system. So if motivation is the reason you keep failing, well, that's the reason you keep telling yourself, oh, I'm just not motivated enough. The likelihood is that you're not uniquely unmotivated versus everyone else. You need to change the system, okay? And those people that do eat healthy lunches every day and do, perhaps go for a run every day or something like that, they've probably been doing it for years, okay? Or if they've made a recent change, it's not been a big change for them, okay? They probably, maybe if they're eating salads, they already made a packed lunch every day, okay? So it wasn't that much of a change for them to turn that packed lunch into a salad. If you're not making packed lunches, you're eating in the canteen, you're eating badly in the canteen, then you're going to find it much harder to prepare meals for yourself every day. That could be the habit to start with, just preparing meals. Don't even try and make them super healthy. Make them easy. Make them the easiest possible meal you can make for yourself. And maybe in addition to that, let's try and make them a little bit healthier than the canteen meals we've been having, for example. So we can make those simple, small changes. So yeah, don't make drastic changes to your diet or anything like that. I think, look for perhaps where you can cut out, like I say, like 100 kilocalories. Start with a small goal, and kind of the same with exercise. Make sure you carve out just that 30 minutes of activity every day, whether it be a walk, whether it be a bit of yoga, bit of something, and do things that you enjoy. If you don't like the gym, again, that's going to require motivation. So do something that you actually like. Do something that you look forward to. If it's something we look forward to in our day, we're much more likely to do it, aren't we? So it's a no-brainer. So maybe we don't need the gym. Maybe get rid of the gym membership. Do you like tennis? Join a tennis club. You're more likely to do activity you genuinely look forward to. So I guess those might be my things. Don't make drastic changes. Keep it really simple. And make sure you enjoy what you're doing, and that's the best way. And remove that answer motivation. And when you do analyze, if you're still not doing something, when you do analyze it, try not to let "I just wasn't motivated enough" be the answer. Look for a deeper question. Go, why? I didn't go to gym. Why? I wasn't dressed for the gym. Why? I didn't wash my clothes at the weekend. All of a sudden, not going to the gym was nothing to do with being unmotivated. It was to do with not washing your clothes at the weekend, okay? So we can make it much more likely to go to gym. And then if it happens again the next week, and we go, okay, I washed my clothes this week and I still didn't go. Why? I went in and sat on the sofa. Okay, that's the habit we need to remove. So it's all those things. It's nothing to do with being unmotivated. It's all these barriers that are in the way, and you've not been removing them because you've not been answering the question correctly. You've not been finding the root cause, and root cause analysis is something we often do. Same as minimum viable product and minimum viable goal. We can make it much more simple. So yeah, start with those simple changes and see how you do. And thank you for your question, Jess. Okay, next up we have Rob. He says, Coach Cam! Exclamation mark. Thanks, Rob. I've got a huge project that's keeping me working 12 plus hours a day at a desk. I want to stay fit. What's your advice? Okay, brilliant. Great question. And to be honest, this is kind of why I created 1%, because I was in the same situation. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm working really long hours. Sometimes it's unpredictable. Sometimes I can have a really busy week if I've got a deadline coming up, things like that. How do you stay fit in those kind of situations? Or perhaps even more than stay fit, how do you lose fat when you're coming up against these barriers? So I'd say firstly, if it is a really busy period, but it's going to be a defined short period, I'd say you need to decide what is a reasonable goal. Because if it is short term, would just maintaining fitness, maintaining weight, be sufficient until you can claw back some time and get that time back? Or, do we not see horizon? Where is the end? If it's a month or longer, it's like, okay, we're gonna have to adapt to this style of working and still perform despite that. Okay, so firstly, decide what is a reasonable goal. And then I guess first off, generally speaking, Just eating right will come at a lower time cost, right? Okay, you know, if you go to the gym, that's half an hour, something like that, plus travel time, plus getting changed, all that kind of stuff. Whereas eating is essentially, if you're going to eat lunch anyway, changing what you eat is virtually a zero time cost. Now, if we're eating healthier and we're eating home cooked meals, maybe there is some time cost associated with that, but in theory, it's a much lower time cost than doing exercise. So the first place I'd focus is on meals and making sure, look at what our sedentary calories are. You can do this with any online calculator. Okay, check out what your sedentary calories are for your height and weight. And really that then becomes a calorie goal for maintaining weight. That plus any exercise that you do. Okay, so do that, measure and focus on your meals. If you're sat down a lot, you're not going to need a lot of refined sugars. Okay, so cutting out as much sugar as possible is probably a good idea if we're sitting down a lot. It will also prevent sugar crashes. Okay, so those times where we're bleary-eyed, especially if you've had, I mean, everyone feels this, if you've had a really calorie dense, high carbohydrate lunch and then you go back to your desk, you know, between 2 and 3 o'clock, usually a bit, let's say your performance is a little bit reduced. Okay, I'm feeling a little bit sleepy because we're kind of getting that sugar crash. It's usually not immediately after, let's say 3 till 4, something like that. We usually want to feel like, that's usually when we wish we could nap at work or something like that. Okay, and it's because of sugars. So or the insulin response. So if we can cut out sugars and carbs, good. But don't cut them out completely. We still need carbs to run, etc., etc. I'm not as much a hater of carbs as some other people out there, but particularly refined sugars, simple carbohydrates. Let's see if we can get rid of some of those. And then, if I'd say, if possible, so to reduce that time cost of cooking and all that kind of stuff, I'd say if possible, you know, spend an hour on your Sunday, something like that, meal prepping your lunches. Kind of lines up with what we were saying with Jess. If you don't have to think about what you're eating for lunch, number one, there's no mental cost of thinking, oh God, what am I going to have for lunch? I've found personally, when I do that, when I haven't planned what I'm having for lunch or anything like that, and I'm working really hard, okay, and it's like, I haven't got time to, you know, go out to a shop and get anything, not really got much in the house, or I can't be bothered to look through the cupboards. That's when you might order in a lunch or something like that. And that's where we start to fail, and that's where we start to get those too many calories in our lunch. Okay, so meal prepping especially, that means you don't have to meal prep during the day, during your weekday. So if we can do those on Sundays, fantastic, and that removes a lot of the time cost. It removes a lot of the mental capacity and all that kind of stuff. A caveat to that, I'd say, is don't make meals super skimpy. We still need to fuel our brain and all that kind of stuff. I feel like a big problem people face when they start going on a diet, and again, this kind of links to Jess earlier. A big problem people face is they actually do too much. They get rid of too many calories from their lunch. Okay, so they have, you know, let's use an example of like an M&S chicken salad without the Caesar dressing, which is virtually all sugar. Okay, without the Caesar dressing, it's like 230 calories or something ridiculous. That is not enough to fuel you through your day. Okay, your lunch needs to be 500 plus calories, but we want those calories to come from you know, good foods. We want to get a sufficient amount of protein in there, a sufficient amount of fats. If you're sat down at a desk, usually you're actually going to be burning fats just as much as you are carbohydrates. Okay, when we're sedentary, we're burning fats. So getting some fats into that meal, usually good. And again, those salads, they don't come with a lot of fat. Usually don't come with that much chicken either. So there's not a lot of protein in there. You're just kind of eating leafy fiber. So don't skimp on those meals. Okay, don't make them too small. Fuel your brain, fuel your day, all that kind of stuff, and just add up your calories through the day, and you'll see You know, if you have a 250 calorie breakfast, maybe more, 500 calorie lunch, that's 750 calories, okay? And if we're eating 1,750, something like that, that still kind of leaves 1,000 calories for an afternoon snack and your tea or dinner for you Southerners. So, you know, so maybe we have an 800 calorie tea and a 200 calorie snack. We go for a half-hour walk, that burns 100 calories. All of a sudden we're in a 100 calorie deficit. Done. Boom. Fantastic. Okay. So, yeah, don't make those meals super skimpy. So that's where I'd focus, is on the meals. Another place to focus, and this is, I've got this up on the screen because it's on one of my courses, is sitting less. Sitting is a great evil. It's a huge plague on the world, and I've got the list here. It's been linked quite significantly to premature morbidity, so that's dying early, metabolic health, high blood pressure, high blood sugar, excess body fat, and abnormal cholesterol. Okay, so if we can sit less, that's usually a good thing. So when you're working throughout the day and you're sat at your desk, just make those small changes. If you can stand for calls, that's a great way. If you can pace about the room, stand up on a call, that's usually what I do. Okay. If you can as well, it really tightens up the muscles of the posterior chain, and we tend to slouch all this stuff. All those muscles tighten up. So if we can get in, if you can find a 10-minute stretch routine that particularly focuses on back and your butt and hamstrings and things like that, the posterior chain, that's a great thing to do. I also use, it's good for work and it's actually good for standing. So I use the Pomodoro technique, which is, I believe, Spanish for tomato timer. It's what they call an egg timer. And basically it's this idea, and most of you will be familiar with this from school, is that the best period to work is for 25 minutes. That's the longest period of time we can have complete focus on something, and then taking a 5-minute break. Okay. So what I do with work is I work for 25 minutes, then I stand for 5 minutes. Okay. And that's how I try and reduce my sitting time, because we want to reduce, number one, and this is from the studies, number one, we want to reduce our total sitting time throughout the day. So if you had a timer timing how much you sit throughout the day, and almost like a chess timer, if you hit that every time you sat down, that's our total sitting time. But then also we want to reduce sitting intervals. So if we're sitting for 4 hours, that's bad. If we can reduce that to 25-minute sitting intervals and we're standing in between those, that's good. That helps combat some of these effects. So it's about the intervals, the individual intervals, and total sitting time as well. So the Pomodoro technique, good for productivity, for working in the first place, and good for sitting less and reducing those sitting intervals. So that's another good one. And really, in a nutshell, that's kind of all I've got on sitting for now. I spend a good, I don't know, 5-10 minutes on that in my course. So if you want more, I can give you more. The other thing so we're trying to stay fit and healthy. So activity, again, same as Jess, make activity something that you look forward to, that you actively look forward to. It's time away from your desk and you love it. We're much more likely to do it if we're enjoying what we're doing. The benefit of doing activity as well every day is it will help you sit less. Okay, so going for a half-hour walk, just those simple things, stuff like that, it reduces our total sitting time. And also getting away from a screen for a little bit of an extended period of time, 30 minutes, will increase our productivity as well. So it's another way to increase our productivity. So you'll see there's a theme here. We can make sure that we take time out to do these little things, and not only will they help us do exercise and be in a caloric deficit, they'll also actually help increase our productivity while we are working, so that we can free up that time. So they all combine to help each other, really. And then so obviously that's really good. And then for more intense activity, I'd say it's good to combine things. So for example, you know, if you're doing your more intense activity on the weekends because during the week you're just too busy, that's fine. If we're doing a moderate activity throughout the week, Okay, let's use the weekends to do some more intense activity. It can be a good idea to combine things. So I usually want to spend my weekend spending time with my fiance. So we'll go and play, I mentioned it, we'll go and play tennis. We'll go around the pitch and putt and play golf. Maybe we'll just walk around town or something like that. And that way we can do perhaps a longer walk than half an hour. We'll go through town, enjoy ourselves, all that kind of good stuff. So there's that. So yeah, find ways to combine things, find ways to combine passions, perhaps, all that kind of stuff, and for more intense activity or longer activity. And by the way, you don't necessarily need to go for half-hour walks. 15 minutes around the block. Doing that consistently is better than not doing half an hour walks consistently. Okay. So whatever time you've got, get away from a screen, stand up and walk around. And then really lastly is the importance of sleep. Okay. There's literally a book called The Importance of Sleep. I forget the author, forgive me. But we want to stay on a really regimented sleep schedule. You know, people are worried about, people often connect rut and routine or whatever and stuff like that. But actually, I find routine very freeing. Especially, I'm a night owl. I can work till 4 a.m. no problem. Okay, and I used to do that a lot. Now I have a specific bedtime. Okay, doesn't matter what's going on. That's my bedtime. I stick to it, and it's actually freed me up. You know, if I'm working till 4 a.m., I'm probably not up till 11 midday, even something like that. I've maybe missed opportunities in the morning, things like that, all that kind of stuff. Or I wasn't able to do my work in the morning, so I'm missing opportunities in the afternoon. All that kind of stuff is much more freeing if you stick to a schedule, and you'll get better sleep that way. Everyone's aware of the body clock. We have a body clock. We sleep better when we stick to a more regimented schedule. So get a regimented sleep schedule. Have a specific time when you stop work, especially. And this is a really important one. I think it's one that people balk at, like, well, if I've not finished the work, then I'm not just going to stop, am I? Yes, you should, especially the first week or so. You absolutely should. And this sort of goes, it's something called Parkinson's law, where it essentially says work expands to fill the time allotted. So if you set, I believe Elon Musk even tweeted something about this the other day, about cleaning your house. If you have a week to clean your house, it'll take you a week to clean your house. If you have an hour to clean your house, you'll clean your house in an hour, okay? And it's a real, like, I don't know, your family are coming around, and you've only got that hour. You'll be surprised how much you can get done in that hour, okay? Versus the week that you set to clean your house. So yeah, work expands to fill the time allotted. So if we set those strict limits on our work time, okay, what we usually find is we actually get more done in those work times allotted, okay? And this is also about setting boundaries with your co-workers and things like that as well. We've all worked with colleagues who like to work all hours of the day, all that kind of stuff. We're getting text messages. No, we need to retrain our co-workers and say, no, I work in this time because actually that makes me more effective, and I'm more, because I do that, I can do my time, I can get enough sleep so that I'm productive in that 12 hours. You over there, or 8 hours, you over there who's working 14 plus hours or something like that, you're not as effective because you're not getting as good sleep. You're actually taking longer to do the work, which is why you're working 14 hours. Okay, you're taking longer to do it because you're not getting good sleep. You're not effective. You're not letting your brain rest. All these kind of things. Okay, so we want to set strict limits on our time, and that really helps us. Again, that really helps us do the other things, and all that kind of stuff. And I've got a study here as well. Weirdly, it's by Voucher Cloud. But they found that the average time spent working in a UK office was like actually working was 2 hours 23 minutes for an 8-hour day. Okay, and the rest of the time was filled with checking social media, talking with co-workers, reading news, making hot drinks, texting, etc., etc. Okay, so if we set 3 hours to do our work, we can do that. We can do what we did in 8 hours in 3 hours, in theory. Okay. And that's if we set those strict time limits. So to put a long story short, to not go on and not bang on about this, you can be much more effective with your work time, and that will free up those 30 minutes to go for a walk. But also going for the walk and all those other things will make you more effective during your work time. So they're actually not mutually exclusive. They're actually all important to each other to make sure we do. And I've personally have found that, and I didn't used to, especially when I was running events. I was available to customers constantly, all the time. I would always reply, and it was just bad. It was bad for my work schedule, and also once that's been established, it's actually hard to bring those boundaries back under control. So I think talking to co-workers as well and telling them what you're doing. Look, I can be more effective if I work strictly 8 hours, because then I can spend my other time working out, I can spend my other time sleeping, I can spend my other time resting my brain, all this kind of stuff, all these things that are going to make me more effective than if I was working 14 hours not doing any of that stuff. Okay, so that's kind of my advice. As with Jess, there's quite a lot there. So as with Jess, we try and make those minimum viable changes. Okay, the smallest possible goals, minimum viable goals, and then be consistent with those. Okay, so start with that going forward. That's the key. So I hope that helps, Rob. Thank you for your question. And that's our half an hour filled today with just 2 questions. I've got a few more questions up here. I'm sorry to everyone else who asked questions. I'll try and get around to them next week. And if you want to submit a question as well, don't forget, you can do that via social media. Send me a direct message. You can do it via my website, www.the1percentway.com. You can also go and subscribe over there, which would be great. And yeah, I'll be back here 6 p.m. Tuesday next week. Goodbye for now.